Sindum. So that was Bislama, the national language of Vanuatu. I was just saying thank you all so much for allowing us to be here today to share with you all what's been going on, and also thank you for praying for us while we're over there and for keeping us in your thoughts. And also thank you for the support that y'all send us, and for the support or for the extra help that y'all sent for the cyclone relief. I guess. Well, oh, and a little quick update on Jen and I. So we came back just before the end of last year, and we came back to have the baby, and now we have Luke Hudson Pitman, who she's carrying right now. I don't know if he wants to wave at everybody. But anyway, so we were planning on leaving last month, but this whole coronavirus thing has blocked the borders, and the borders to Vanuatu are closed right now. We still don't know when they're going to open up, so we'll be here for a little while longer. Jen's hoping, or well, I'm hoping we'll be leaving next month or so. After looking at the way things are going, I'm hoping they're going to be opening the borders. Jen's thinking it might be close to the end of the year, so just pray about that we can get back. Also with the cyclone, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a little bit, the cyclone has really beat them up pretty bad, so it would definitely be a good time for us to be able to be back there to help out with this time. We'll go ahead and play the video presentation if it's ready, and then I'll come back up and talk at y'all some more. Boy, I tell you, it's like torture having to sit there and listen to yourself talk for so long. Anyway, well, I wrote up, we spent yesterday writing down all the different things that we've been doing in Vanuatu, getting a nice little list of bullet points for me to work off of, and we totally forgot to bring it today, so it's still on the computer. Anyway, we haven't actually done a lot of updates. We haven't been able to go to too many churches. We were kind of waiting towards the end, and then this whole coronavirus has kind of jammed us up. So anyway, I'm going to try to remember everything. I might be asking my wife if I'm missing anything every once in a while. She's the brains of the group. So anyway, I'm going to talk first about the water project that we're aiming to get in. Now, where the whole thing started with was Pastor Gabby. Y'all saw his picture up there. Pastor Gabby got saved from another missionary when he was about 14 years old, and he continued on. He's the first guy in his village for the entire. What the village did was his entire village put money together in order to send him to college. So they sent him to Port Vila, another island, and he went to be a mechanic. So everyone put money in, invested in him to be able to go to college. He went to college there, came back to Mataloi, the village that we were talking about up there that we built the road to. And shortly after getting back, even after going through school and everything, he knew something wasn't right. He didn't want to go and be a mechanic. What he wanted to do was be a pastor. And he had a dream to have a Bible college up in his village. So he went and talked to his dad about it. He was worried because, a village is, in some ways, it's kind of like a big family. So imagine everyone in your family all pitching together and paying for someone to go to college for a certain thing. And then that guy coming back, well, I guess this probably happens with parents all the time. But anyway, the guy comes back and never thought about it that way. But anyway, the guy comes back and now he's like, well, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do this, even though we spent all the money. So he didn't want to offend everyone. But at the same time, he knew what God was wanting him to do with his life. And he talked to his dad. His dad was also a Christian. His dad was the chief of the village, which Pastor Gabby should have been the next chief of the village. And that was another part of it. And Pastor Gabby told his dad, and his dad told him, you do what God wants you to do. So he forgot everything that he had been doing and became the pastor there at Mataloi, the village there. And then years later, he was able to start the Bible college, and the Bible college has grown through the years. He's the one that came to Friends in Action originally and asked if we could build a road into the village. So we've built the road into the village, which has helped the Bible college grow much more. It's helped the people there. Before, we used to have to drive about 4 or 5 hours up and then stop at a village, and then would hike there another 2 hours to get to the village. And now it's just a much simpler thing to do. And I did want to point out, though, that Pastor Gabby is super happy with his decision. He wouldn't change anything. But how many of us have gone through and maybe we also went to college for something. Maybe we also had and there's been something on our mind that we should have done, but we ended up not doing it because, look at Pastor Gabby. He had everything set up. He'd already gone to school. It makes sense that he's already started down this road. It's so hard to change. It just reminded me of one of my uncles. He's 80 this year, and he feels God called him to Mexico as a missionary when he was a young man. And he had already gone through college as well, and he was dating a girl in the States, and she didn't want to go to Mexico, and he went back and forth, and he ended up staying here in the States. And now, he had a great life here in the States. He was one of the guys. He set up those towers at the airport. So almost every airport, they flew him all over the place. Did pretty well for himself. And he does help missions by supporting missionaries. He's sent, I don't know, over the time of his life, he's definitely sent over 100,000 or more to missionaries. But to hear him when he talks about how God called him to Mexico, and he'll just break down and cry because he feels like he didn't use his life for what God called him to do. And I just think, maybe there's someone here today that you feel like maybe when you were younger, God called you to do something, and then you're already so far down the road one way that you thought, well, it's too late now. I got to keep doing this. Anyway, just a little something that I thought about, that it's never too late to turn around and do what you feel like God is calling you to do. But talking about Pastor Gabby and starting the Bible college there, and just being in the way, I preached a sermon early on when I got there to Vanuatu about I being in the way the Lord led me, how the servant that found the wife for Isaac, how he went there and he was in motion trying to find the woman for Isaac to marry. And I preached a story, or I preached it, and I also told a story, analogy of how if you're not moving, you're not going to, like a truck. You can jump in a truck and you can turn that steering wheel whichever way you want, but it's not going to turn left or right until you're actually in motion going somewhere. I mean, you can sit somewhere and think about something, but you're not going to get there unless you're actually going and taking steps. And a couple of weeks later, one of the guys in our church came to me, and he told me his wife and him had been praying about it, and they were going to go to Bible college, and the message that I preached had convicted them. And they're like, where's that verse that you preached about the truck? If it's not moving, it can't turn. It's like, well, maybe I didn't explain something exactly right. It wasn't a Bible verse, but anyway, they've been up there in college for 2 years now. They've already helped plant a church in down south in a village where his wife is from, and hopefully in another couple of years they'll be pastoring that church down there. So that's encouraging, and all that is again through Pastor Gabby's his Bible college that he planted up there in Big Bay. So Pastor Gabby came to us a couple years ago now. This has been a long time in the works, but he came to us and told us about this source of water they found up on a mountain. And we went up there and checked it out. We're getting 45 gallons a minute, in between 45 and 50 gallons a minute out of this spring, just coming right out of the mountain. It's clean water. So anyway, his vision, he was thinking if we could take that water and bring it down the mountain into all these different villages. See, Pastor Gabby's they've already reached out so much up there in Big Bay. But there's still some villages that just won't allow him to come in and share the gospel. To get into a village in Vanuatu, you can't just walk in and start sharing the gospel. There's procedures, like you got to talk to the chief first. You have to be invited into the worst thing you could do would be to go into a village and then get kicked out by the chief because you didn't say hi to him first or ask if you could come there and be there, So now the chief oftentimes is also the witch doctor, and then if he's not, he's generally pretty close with the witch doctor. And a lot of the witch doctors don't like different religions coming in because they see it as a way that they lose power. And they've seen it in other villages where Christianity came in and then the witch doctor disappeared, and there's no witch doctor in those villages. So they don't want to disappear. So they lean heavy on the chief and convince the chief not to allow us to come in. Now, Pastor Gabby was looking at it, and he was thinking, if we can bring this water into the village, and it's just normal human nature, but even more so in Vanuatu, when you do something for somebody, they reciprocate. They give you something in return. And he's thinking, if we can bring this water into these different villages, we're looking at 33 different villages we'll be able to get this water source into. 33 different villages. This is a massive project, 15 miles of water pipe. That's it's not a small deal. It's not cheap. So, and also just pray with us on that. We've been reaching out to several different companies. Hopefully we can get this water pipe donated. We're hoping once we have everything completely set up, we can take the package. We're even praying and thinking about going to like Coca-Cola and seeing if they would be willing to help sponsor this to get it going. Because it's not just for we're doing it solely for the spiritual aspect of it, but at the same time, people's lives are going to be impacted by having running clean water in their villages. So kind of lost my track where I was at with Pastor Gabby. Yes, if we're able to bring water into these villages, the chiefs are going to invite us, and that's going to be an open door for Pastor Gabby to get in there and share the gospel. And from that, kind of like the woman at the well, we're going to come in with regular water, and hopefully we'll be able to give them the everlasting water that won't end. So that's our prayer there right now. We're praying. We're also, in the future, we're going to be, once we start the project, we're going to be needing people that are good with running heavy equipment and other things, so they can help clear the land. It's the first part of where the source is to the first village is probably the hardest. There's only about 15 foot of drop. So, and in between the 15 foot of drop, there's a massive valley in between, and a couple of rivers we have to cross, creeks. Anyway, so a lot of stuff has gone into it. We did a survey, as y'all saw on the video, finding out the best way to run the pipe. That was a lot of work. The Nevans up there, after a while, they started thinking, y'all are just playing around like kids out here, because we started one way, we spend the whole day cutting the trees, clearing, getting to one place, and then to where we can finally shoot across and get an elevation, and it's like, this whole way isn't going to work, we're going to have to go another way. So then we spend another day cutting this. From the village, you can look out and you can see these massive veins that we just cut straight through the bush, the jungle. Jungle's pretty thick. You can't just walk through it. It's so thick. And we're clearing it out big enough for a truck to go through. Anyway, so we finally found the best way to send the water, and that's what we're working on right now. That's one of our big projects that we're trying to do. We're thinking it's probably going to last about another 5 years. Right now, we almost have everything done. As far as the government goes, we've got letters from all the chiefs in the area and all the property owners saying, yes, we want it, yes, we need it, please bring it. And now Vanuatu started something called DWSSP. It's Drinking Water Safety and Strategic Planning. So we're having to work with the government a lot more. It used to be water projects were easier to do. Now there's a lot of hoops we've got to jump through. But it's for the best. It should help them be able to maintain their system longer. But that's what we're working on there right now with the water project. And we're also hoping to have teams that can be able to come over and help us. And really, the water project is going to be, we're going to be able to work on it in the dry season, in the season that's not the cyclone season. And then after that, we won't really be able to do much until the next. So we'll only be able to work on it for half a year, every year, And then the other thing that we've had happen just recently, this whole COVID thing has got us stuck here, so we can't do much. But Vanuatu just got hit by a Cyclone Harold, the second biggest cyclone to hit Vanuatu, and it is the largest to hit Santo, our island, which is the largest island in Vanuatu. And it was a Cyclone 5. They had, Category 5, Cyclone 5. Category 5, they had speeds of up to 165 miles per hour. And if you think about it, they're not living in normal houses. They're living in little bush houses that are made out of bamboo and grass roof. And it's not... We had the roof on our house got ripped off, and we live in a nice brick house with metal roof, and a lot of our workshops and stuff like that, we lost roofs. How many roofs did we lose altogether? 5? 5 roofs. So it was that bad, and everyone else, their entire houses just disappeared. That's how, it's just totally different. And also, a lot of people in Vanuatu, everybody in Vanuatu, except for some people that work really cushy jobs in town, they all live off their gardens. And the cyclone destroys the gardens as well. So a lot of their stuff there, they'll have a little bit of lag time where right away they can eat stuff that was planted. But after a month or two, that's when it gets into the hard time where they're not having the fruit and the vegetables that they should have been having. So the money that y'all had sent us, a lot of that money we're using to buy food and stuff for the neighboring villages around us. And it's hard with us being here because we found one store in Vanuatu that Jen had done some work with. It's a Chinese lady there, and she's allowing Jen to make orders on the internet, so we can pay on the internet. Well, we use our bank account there, and then we have one of our guys that we have working with us there pick up the food, and he's taking it to the villages. So that's working out. But still, it's just hard working everything out, being here and not there. And then, I mean, some of the stories, Matt and Lydia, my brother and sister, my sister and brother-in-law, they also work on the south side of the island, and they were showing some pictures, and they had a picture of this. I mean, every hut in this village had been destroyed, and they showed one hut that was still there, and the roof didn't get ripped off or anything. And apparently what they did was everybody met at that one hut, and they put all the women and children inside it, and then all the men stood outside in the rain, in the cyclone, and held on to the rafters, trying to keep it from blowing away. And they kept it from blowing away. Now, part of me thinks, like, was that real? Like, all the weight of the guys hanging on it really kept it from blowing away, or was that maybe God that protected those people and kept the hut from blowing away? But anyway, rough time for them there. So thank you for your prayers, and thank you for the support that you all sent, especially for that. And what are some of the other things I'm missing, Jen? I guess you already missed half of what I said. My mind's going blank. I'm trying to remember the thing we typed out yesterday. I haven't gone over my time yet, have I? Okay. Anyway. So, does anyone have? Do you want to open it to questions and answers? This might jog my memory to something I forgot to say. Does anyone have any questions? Always takes a while before one person gets courage, and then after that, everyone's got a question. We'll go. Yes, sir.
What is that pipe made out of?
We're going to use a poly pipe, just like what many farmers probably use here in the States. It's going to be a 4-inch pipe, the first leg, so a pretty big one. And we've got a church, a Bible college called Messiah. It's in Pennsylvania, and they are working. Their engineering team is working on developing this. But then we also have a lot of, they're working on it, and then we send it off to some professionals that also help missionaries out, and they're taking looks at it. We got people up in Vancouver, Canada, working on it. We got people all over the states are looking, all over the world are looking at it, making sure that everything is organized, set up the best, to have the right amount of water flow get to here and not blow up the pipe here, and have the right here and have it. We're trying to build it to last. A lot of smart people are working on it. It's not just me out there DIY figuring things out. So, and we're also going to be fusing the pipes, so we're not going to have joints. So that's another cost that they're going to buy this tool that will fuse the pipes together, which we've been told is going to be the better way to do it. We're also going to bury the pipe the whole distance. Apparently, if the pipe has sunlight hitting on it, it causes the calcium to build up a lot more. And that is one big problem that we do have with the water. The water is very clean, but the calcium level is very high. So burying it should help with that. And anyway, did I answer all of your question? I started talking so much I forgot. Yes, ma'am. It's all, so they use our alphabet. Well, I don't know if it's our alphabet, I guess. I don't know enough about it. Anyway, a lot of people use ABC, or anyway. So Jen is working a lot on formatting it, lining it up. Bishlama, it has a lot of English mixed into it, and a little bit of French mixed in, and it's pidgin. It's like what they speak in Papua New Guinea. So good night would be good night. Good morning would be morning. It's very close. But then there's other words, especially when you're reading, what are some of the words that look like other words? I is not I. You might see I, but that's E, which is connects a word. Save. Okay, so you might see a word that looks like save, but it's actually save. And suppose you savvy Bishlama, but you savvy one of me stop talk about Naya. That's savvy is understand. So I was saying if you understand Bishlama, you'd understand what I'm saying right now. But savvy, or you even hear that in I don't know, a pirate would say savvy or something. I don't know. So I mean that's another word but there's a lot of words that are very close to English. So it doesn't take a terribly long time to pick up the language, but then sometimes people come over and they start thinking, oh, Bishlama is just bad English. So they start talking really loud bad English, and it's like, nobody understands you. That's not how it works. So it is a little more complex, but it's definitely not as hard as learning Cantonese or Mandarin or something like that, you know. Yes, ma'am.
So when this pipe goes into different villages, are you going to have like a building that the water will come into for people to go into the building to get the water?
So,
or a well, spigot? I mean,
yeah. So some of the villages they're wanting water brought right to their little huts. And again, it's kind of weird because their huts only last about 7 years before they build houses, but they're kind of like throwaway. Like they know the termites are going to eat them. They know a storm's going to blow it away. So their houses always move. I mean, you see a picture 1 year, and then 2 years later, 3 of the huts have moved. You know, you go back, take another picture. 5 years later, almost all the huts have moved. So it would be weird to have a permanent water fixture in the house. But what we're telling the people, we're just going to set up like a rain tank. So all the water will come down to a storage tank. And then that tank will fill up, and we're going to set the tanks up where they overflow. We're not going to set it up with like a ball cock to turn it off, just because with the water turning off and on, that's a lot of extra hammering on the pipes, and it wears things out quicker. So the water, once it reaches a certain level in that tank, it'll start overflowing. But now, from the first village we're going to have these tanks set up like rain tanks, these big poly tanks. And then they also have to be strapped down and everything so the cyclone doesn't blow them away. And then that's what happened to our rain tanks at our house. 2 of them just completely, I guess something broke a pipe, and then because the pipe was broke, all the water drained out of them. And then, what broke the pipe? We had a well house, and the well house blew away, which broke our pressure tank, and then all the water came out of there, and then now I'm going into too much detail on the wrong thing, but all the water drained, our tanks blew away. So we're putting cables on these so they won't get blown away in a cyclone. We're going to have several tanks up at the first village, and then it'll go down from there to the next village. We'll have a couple tanks, and then from there it'll go to another village. So all the water is going to be set up at these holding tanks, and then the plumbing and stuff that we have outside of it will be inside a locked box, and only certain people in that village or over kind of the whole water project will have keys to be able to get in to shut off. You know, all the valves and stuff like that have to be locked up because one village gets upset with another village. We don't want them to be able to turn off the water to another village. We already know that's another reason why the pipes are being buried. All the different projects that have happened down south or different places, when the pipes are up, people get mad at other people. They go and take their bush knife and, oops, I was trying to cut a tree, or a plant, and I hit your pipe. So they cut pipes all the time. So burying it is another reason, or another reason we're burying it is to keep people from sabotaging each other. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What's your electricity status in that area?
Oh. So, there's a lot of different ways I could go with answering this question. So up in the village, part of what they're talking about, and there's no electricity up there. Part of what they're talking about, they've thought a little bit about putting like a hydro unit in there so that we can because we've got so much water that's going to be going through that first leg. They've talked about putting something in there to generate power, and then using something like that to filter the water, possibly, even though the water's already super clean. But these are just thoughts that they're putting out, or even just having that there and providing some electricity for the first village. Those are thoughts that people are talking about, since, we already have the water flow there and the pressure. As far as us, we live, so we're close enough to town that they do have power lines going by, but we're far enough away from the road that it would cost $22,000 to bring the power to our house. So we don't have power at our house. So what we have some batteries, and we have some solar panels, and that's what we have. Our batteries have actually, there were batteries that were already in that house when we moved in, and they were shot. They're supposed to last about 5 years, and it was already a little over 5 years. So poor Jen has lived, at least we have a fridge. I mean, it's super nice having a fridge, but Jen's a planner. Like, she likes, when things are on sale, especially in Vanuatu, you don't get a lot of things. When a cruise ship comes in, and there's certain things that are there, or not a cruise ship, but when a container ship comes in, and it's like, oh wow, I can buy cheese, or I can buy butter, or certain things like that. You want to be able to grab a lot of that butter and put it in your freezer, and then you got butter for a while. But we don't have a freezer, we only have a fridge. So, and butter does last a decent amount of time anyway, but that's just one of the examples where we could store stuff, or even storing meat. We could store a lot more meat when we get it on sale. So Jen has lived the last several years, or a couple of years, without a freezer, but she's done great without a freezer. We have a freezer, we just don't have the power to run the freezer, and we have our fridge, and yeah, I mean, we have enough power to run a couple of little fans at night if we get a lot of sunlight, but we have a container going over this year, at the end of this year, hopefully, as long as the COVID thing works out, and we're going to have new batteries in that, Lord willing. So power will be better. It's still nothing like in the States where, I mean, I always grew up like when you leave a room, you got to turn out the light, and doors are always like all these, but yeah, you really feel it now in Vanuatu when you turn on a light in one room and the light goes dim in the other room, or and hey, if you run those lights too long, you're not going to be able to have the fan. You're not going to be able to sleep at night. So it's just, Vanuatu is so hot and humid. You lay on top of your sheets at night, just sticky all over, and yeah. Anyway, but you get used to it, and you live without AC. You got your windows open so the air blows through, and it's just humid. Like being here the other day, it was 96 or 93 or something, and I was just thinking, like, man, it feels like it's only 70, just because it's so dry here compared to Vanuatu. But anyway, I think I answered the power question. Is that pretty good? All right. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You have no power tools in your shop then? Is that all?
Well, we do have some power tools. So part of what Friends in Action thought when they were sending stuff over is we can get tools so much cheaper in America. And a lot of times you can go to companies, and companies will help donate things. So we do have a decent amount of power tools. And we have a generator that we run for that. The generator is pretty expensive to run, so we don't, it gets dark at night. I pretty much finish up in the workshop because I don't have lights out there. I'll finish working a little bit with my cell phone or something. But one of the things that we're looking at doing is getting a solar pump set up. I don't know if we probably don't have. If we were in Texas, all the farmers here would also have cows and stuff. But anyway, we have to run that pump once. We have to run it every 2 or 3 days to pump water for the cows, and we use a lot of fuel doing that. So we're looking at setting up a solar pump. So as long as we have sunlight, it's going to be filling up those tanks slowly, and that should help hopefully pull the cost down on pumping water a lot. And now that cost of pumping water is coming out of Friends in Action's budget. It's not coming out of us. But at the same time, we're the managers there at Friends in Action, so we try hard to be good stewards of what we're doing with that. And we pump water because we have cattle on our property. We have about 130 or so head of cattle on our property, and then we use that cattle to help. We sell some of it to offset the costs there that we have on the field, and then we also use it like the cyclone time right now. We've given a lot of cows out to the different churches in the area and to different villages for meat and food. So, and in Vanuatu, we don't do. It's not like cattle in America where we're giving it supplements and we're taking care of. We have the property there. Friends in Action has the property, so we just let them do whatever they do. We try to castrate them and stuff like that, but really it's just we don't do a whole lot of work with them. They just eat the grass, and we try to pump water for them, and then they're there when we need them. But that's another thing. We would kill a cow, have it in our freezer if we had a freezer. Did you have a question, Pastor?
Your house, is it still in disrepair?
There was another missionary family that had just come into Vanuatu before we left. And they were looking for a place to stay, so it worked out pretty well that we let them stay in our house. And then, and he actually I told him the reason why we weren't originally looking to put people in the house is because we didn't have power. Like the batteries were just at the very edge of not holding anything, you know. So he was like, oh, well, I'll buy my own batteries and put them in there if that's all right. And then when I leave, I'll just take the batteries. So, because he was willing to do that, I allowed him to come and stay in the house. So they were there. The roof got ripped off the master bedroom and a couple other rooms there. And they helped organize everything to get the roof put back on the house. So we do have a roof on the house now. It's most of the other buildings that are still, we haven't got a roof on. Oh, one of the guys that works with us that we provide him a house. He's kind of like the gatekeeper on the property. His roof got torn off, and we did get that roof back on too. So the roofs are back on, or two of the roofs are back on, but we still have a lot of other that need work still. So, any other questions?
You said your cell phone, you guys have cell phone service there?
Yes, ma'am. So, well, up on the hill, where we live, it's a little bit spotty. In our house, it works out all right. And then in town, you got decent reception. There's areas people know where they have reception, where they don't. Now, when you get out to the bush, there's not much reception just because the ground's so hilly, so mountainous, and it does cut out on the signal a lot. So, but yes, sir, you'll see guys walking with loincloths on, and they'll have a cell phone tucked in the little strap. Downtown, you can buy a smartphone for like $20, and I mean $20 is a lot for a minivan, but then again, think you got people in America spending $1,000 on a phone. I mean, it's got to be about same equivalence. So anyway, you see a guy with a little smartphone tucked in his little strap. So and then I've seen some of the weird like little bitty cheap solar panels, you know, that you get for, I don't know, like a light in your hut or something, and they'll have the end cut off, and they'll have these bare wires twisted all over the place, and then two of the bare wires tucked in the back of the phone. And I mean, to me, it kind of amazes me, how could they figure out what pins they had to touch and which one of those? I mean, I don't know if it was actually working, but I do remember seeing this phone with cords jammed in the bottom of it and thinking, like, how in the world is that charging that phone? I don't know. Anyway, but yes, there are cell phones there. Any other questions? I think I'm getting right at the edge of the time, right? Yeah, okay. Maybe one or two more questions? Okay, maybe no more questions? Surely somebody's got something, but they're thinking, oh no, somebody's going to laugh at me if I ask that question. All right, well, I guess nobody else has any other questions for me. Thank you all so much again for